What's up, Internet? Welcome to Once Over. I'm Kaylee, and today we're going to be giving the once over to Night of the Creeps.
Thrill me.
There will be spoilers. Before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to Heather for recommending that I review this film. Stick around to the end of the review to hear a little bit more about Heather and the restaurant that she's going to be opening soon. Let's start out with the plot. Night of the Creeps, which came out in 1986, starts out on a spaceship in the year 1959 with a bunch of grumpy aliens running around butt naked. And I know that we're supposed to expect nudity in horror films, but wow, the first scene? That's a lot of alien butt. One of the aliens shoots a canister into outer space where it eventually crash lands onto Earth right near Makeout Point, where Pam and her boy toy Johnny are about to, make out. But that's not the only threat to Pam and Johnny's safety. There's also an escaped mental patient turned axe-wielding maniac on the loose. Johnny goes to investigate the comet-like flash that they saw in the sky, and he discovers the canister, which results in slugs shooting into his mouth. All while the now alone Pam gets hacked up. Flash forward 27 years, and we get to meet college students and self-proclaimed nerds Chris Romero, played by Jason Lively, and James Carpenter, aka J.C. Hooper, played by Steve Marshall. Chris and J.C. go to Fraternity Row, where Chris experiences love at first sight when he sees Cynthia, played by Jill Whitlow. I should be more specific. Cynthia Cronenberg. Now you might be starting to notice a little pattern here, but George Romero, John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper, and David Cronenberg aren't the only movie legends that have characters named after them. As the movie goes on, we'll be introduced to Detective Cameron, Officers Bava, Craven, De Palma, and Dante, Mr. Minor, Detective Landis, and Sergeant Raimi. And of course, the college is none other than Corman University. It's clear from these naming conventions that director Fred Decker is a huge cinephile. He sprinkles references to other movies all throughout Night of the Creeps, and even makes a couple of references to his own upcoming movie Monster Squad. But we'll talk more about him later. Back to the plot. In order to impress Cynthia, Chris gets the harebrained idea that he should join the Betas fraternity. So him and JC attempt to pledge. But Cynthia's annoying boyfriend, and also head of the fraternity, the Bradster, tells them that in order to join, they're gonna have to prove their loyalty by going on a corpse stealing mission. While trying to find a corpse to leave on the porch of a rival frat, Chris and JC stumble upon a cryogenically frozen corpsicle, who we of course all recognize as none other than 1959 Johnny from Makeout Point. And I'd like to take a moment to just point out that even the corpsicle is more modest than the aliens from the beginning of the film.
And why the fuck are you in your underwear? Tighty whities? Really?
They regenerate the freeze-dried Johnny and run from the scene when they realize
It's alive!
But it's already too late because there's still a slug inside of Johnny and it hops into the mouth of an unsuspecting scientist. No need to fear though, because Detective Ray Cameron is on the case. Cameron is played by Tom Atkins, who, let's be honest, just makes every movie better. Cameron is a one-liner king, with his catchphrase being,
Thrill me, thrill me, thrill me, thrill me. Thrill me.
He starts investigating everything that's been going on, and simultaneously, more and more weird stuff begins to happen. A beheaded body shows up on the doorstep of Cynthia's sorority, and she gets a late-night visit from a zombified Johnny. After these events, Cynthia becomes convinced that everything going on is zombie-related. But of course, it isn't just zombies. Let's not forget about the slugs. Eventually, the slugs find JC in the bathroom and use him as an incubator. Around this time, Chris gets the attention that he's been desiring from Cynthia, and she even asks him to go out on a date. I think the whole movie is summed up pretty well by this line.
Zombies, exploding heads, creepy crawlies, and a date for the formal.
While all hell is breaking loose, we discover that Detective Cameron knows a little bit more than he's been letting on. It turns out that he was in love with 1959 Pam, who got axed in the beginning of the film. After her murder, he tracked down the maniac, killed him, and buried him. Well, turns out he's buried in back of Cynthia's sorority house, which explains why that's the epicenter of all the chaos. After the zombified axe murderer returns to life and kills another victim, Detective Cameron shoots him in the head, which results in even more slugs being released. But there's no time for that, because it's time for Chris and Cynthia's date. While getting ready, Chris discovers a posthumous message from JC explaining that the slugs hate fire. He grabs Cameron, a flamethrower, and the gents are off to save the day. The general plan is shoot the zombies in the head, and when the slugs start to splurt out, to light them on fire. They return to the sorority, where Chris teams up with Cynthia to kill all the outdoor zombies, while Detective Cameron clears out the house. house. They begin to notice that a bunch of slugs are heading towards the basement. Cameron, with his mouth taped shut, douses the basement in gasoline. The movie ends with him sacrificing himself in a fiery explosion, and Chris and Cynthia making out by the virtual fireplace. We're left with a couple of slugs escaping from Cameron's charred remains. I love this movie, and I know that I say that all the time. Maybe I just love a lot of movies. But this in particular is a horror nerd's dream. Like I already mentioned, director Fred Dekker is a blatant film aficionado. Not only does he reference tons of movie legends by naming characters after them, but he also makes reference to Plan 9 from Outer Space, which could be considered to be one of the most famous sci-fi films of the 1950s. Not only that, but Plan 9 actually came out in 1959, which is the year that this movie starts out in. And Fred Dekker was also born in 1959. Coincidence? Dekker even references his own not-yet-made film Monster Squad, which would come out the following year. We can see the references to Monster Squad in this sick graffiti, and a second time by the reusage of the line,
"Corpses that have been dead for 27 years do not get up and go for a walk by themselves,"
which in Monster Squad goes,
2,000-year-old dead guys do not get up and walk away by themselves.
That's some seriously meta shit right there, preemptively referencing your own upcoming movie. I had the pleasure of seeing Fred Dekker and star Tom Atkins at a screening of Night of the Creeps and Monster Squad at the George Eastman House in 2010, which was actually the first time that I ever saw Night of the Creeps. I was a little bit worried that my love of this film was entirely tied to that experience. But each time I watch this movie, I love it more and more. It really masterfully blends genres of film. We get a little bit of a college comedy, we get a little bit of 50s sci-fi, we get a little bit of 80s slasher, and we get a little bit of zombie. Fun facts about the slugs themselves. They were actually armatures affixed onto remote control cars, which is a really clever way to take such a simple design and make it something extraordinary. The exception to this remote control car situation was in one of the last scenes when we get the pile of all of the slugs. This was actually accomplished with stop motion animation. I love the simplistic nature of the creature design because it almost allows the creeps to take on a background role, and instead the Night of the Creeps can kind of imply the Night of the Heebie-Jeebies. I do have a couple of criticisms though. First of all, the lawnmower scene is a bit underwhelming. Now, I love a good lawnmower scene, and I know that I cannot compare every lawnmower scene to Dead Alive, which is obviously the best lawnmower scene of all time. However, the gore factor in the lawnmower scene in Night of the Creeps is just not up to par, especially considering the volume of lawnmower deaths in movies. In addition to Dead Alive, there's Frankenhooker, Lawnmower Man, Final Destination 4, Scream Queens, Slaughter High, the 2019 Child's Play. Was that a lawnmower? And Sleepaway Camp 3. I'm sure that I'm missing some, so let me know what I missed. The shot is super cool. I love being able to look through the lawnmower blades, but it gets really campy with this drawn-on blood. Now, Dekker did mention during the audio commentary that the entire tool shed sequence was added on after a bad test screening, so I wonder if part of the reason that I found this underwhelming is because there just wasn't enough money in the budget to be able to accomplish what they wanted to do. More importantly, though, Stryper does not, in fact, rule. Apparently, this famous graffiti was added on because the makeup artist was in a relationship with the frontman of the Christian metal band Stryper. And I can't say it enough. Stryper does not rule. I do notice that the character sitting in front of this graffiti is none other than JC. JC, Jesus Christ, Christian metal. Is it possible that Dekker was trying to create some sort of religious subtext? I'm overthinking it. Let's just leave it at Stryper sucks. Something else that I really loved is the running gag that the coroner just keeps eating sandwiches all throughout the movie. He even carries in a briefcase to one of the crime scenes, and when he opens it, it's revealed that the only thing in there is a sandwich. Talk about professionalism. We might as well call it a lunchbox. My man loves to eat, and the last thing that I want to mention is something that perplexes me in movie after movie. How is it that everybody always knows where the boiler room is? I have never once been in a building where I was like, oh, the boiler room is here. And when Chris has to go to the boiler room, he knows exactly where he's going. Is that something that people know? Should I know that? I don't even think that I know where the boiler is in my house. Do I have a boiler? So with all that being said, I would give this movie a very solid 5 out of 7 thumbs up. Maybe even a little bit more than that. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the review, I wanted to say an extra special thank you to Heather for recommending that I review this movie. I have tons of amazing memories about my childhood with Heather, but more so than talking about our past, I'd love to tell you a little bit about something very exciting coming up in Heather's future. Heather is going to be opening up a vegan pizza restaurant in Rochester, New York. It's expected to open in June of 2022. The restaurant is going to be called Squatchos. It's named after her late brother, who is tall, hairy, and elusive, just like a Sasquatch. I'm really excited to check out her restaurant, and I'm happy to say that just like in the making of Night of the Creeps, no animals were harmed in the making of her pizza. Not even zombie cats or dogs. You can check out more information about her upcoming restaurant in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching. I can't wait for the next one.